the question is, why does there seem to be a large portion, particularly within the evangelical community, that sees science and faith as being in conflict? And I would argue that there's two causes for it. And I use the terms folk theology and folk science as a way, and didn't invent those terms, those are other people's terms. But that in many cases, people's understanding of science is not accurate. It's not both the content of science and the nature of science, which I talk about later, which I think is very important, is not something that accurately reflects the way science is actually done by scientists. And their understanding of science is not consistent with current understandings of science. There's lots of misunderstandings, fundamental misunderstandings of science. Then there's also fundamental misunderstandings of theology. A lot of theology is not theology based on sound theological scholarship, but from kind of a folk theology, kind of ground up theology. And some of that is inconsistent with the theological traditions, even of people's own denominations. So one of my concerns is that both the scientific community needs to improve their ability to communicate accurately science to the public, and the theological community needs to do the same thing. And as I mentioned earlier, I think one of the main issues there is the nature of science, fundamental misunderstandings of the nature of science. And those are widely promoted, and again, not just by the anti-evolutionists, for lack of a better term, but also by some, well, I guess what I would call evangelical atheists, popular writers that are excellent scientists, but they also are under these same misperceptions of the nature and limits of science. And that's what people hear. They kind of hear these loud voices, popular voices, that really distort what science is and what its domain is and what its limits are.